Good morning, my name is Greg Ison. I'm with Ison's Nursery Vineyard. On this pruning video, we're going to show a vine that has too many spurs and what we need to do about it. This vine is 8 to 9 years old, and as you can see, we have a lot of cordons or spurs in here. We haven't thinned these out as well as they should be, and we're going to go over how is the best way to make sure we have good spacing between all of our fruiting spurs. There again, the rule that we try to use is the hand width rule. At any time, we want to be able to space our hand and not have any cordons or spurs closer than the width of our hand. If they are closer than that, then we need to completely thin those out. I always try to thin out the cordons or spurs that are on the underside of the main arm first, because those are usually the less productive fruiting branches on the vine. So in this situation here, we have a cordon here, a cordon here, a cordon here, here. We just have way too many, so we're going to thin those out. So I always try to start on the underside first. We're going to make a clean cut. We're going to come in here, as you can see this one here, we're going to make a clean cut here. We're going to make a clean cut here, here, and also there. Okay, so by eliminating that one there, you see I have my hand width in place here. I actually have a little bit more, and that's fine. And here we have a spur here, and a spur here. You don't always have to take the underside one off. So in this particular case here, I'm going to take this one off. My rule of thumb that I try to go by is if I know after the vine's been pruned and the spurs are too close together, and I know that those vines or runners are going to cross, forming eggs during the growing season, then generally they're too close together. So I've eliminated that one here, and I'm just going to do a light pruning just so I can see visually a little bit better of what I have here. And I'm going to move on over to here. A lot of times you have to do the pruning before you can really come in here and identify which cordons or spurs you want to eliminate first. So I'm just going to get some of this excess growth out of the way. All right, so if you can bring the camera in really close here, there again, you just see how crowded I am. I cannot get my hand width anywhere in this 12-inch, 18-inch space of the vine. So with all these buds here, I have way too many spurs, I have way too many buds, and if this vine's not pruned properly, the fruit quality could be smaller than I would like. We could have overproduction issues that could cause stress on the plant, and just overall, we want to keep this vine as healthy as we can. So there again, I'm going to drop my hand width right here. I have one cordon here, one cordon here, one cordon here. I'm going to take the one out on the underside, right there, and I'm going to take him out right there. So right there, these are unobtrusive to one another. So I know I've got good spacing here. But on the other side of the vine, as you can see, I have another cordon here. So I'm going to go ahead and take him completely out too. So by doing that, I've opened this up, I have my hand width in place, and I've just made this vine a whole lot happier. So as we move on down the vine, I have another cordon here, I have a cordon here, and a cordon here. Now these two are very close together, and I know I just said I always want to remove the ones on the underside when I can, but this is a situation where this is the one that's the most crowded. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make a clean cut. I'm going to remove this one here. So there again, the hand width rule, I'm right there where I need to be. So as we come in here and prune up a little more of the vines here, just so I can see where I'm at, we come to the situation here where I've got my hand width rule, but right here, I do not have a hand width, but if you notice, one is on the underside of the main arm and one is on the top. Throughout the growing season, these two cordons or spurs should not be competing with one another. So I'm actually going to leave these here because they're unobtrusive to one another. But as I move on down, if I get too crowded again, I'll thin some more out. So just real quick, we have another cordon here, cordon here. I'll take him out. And by taking him out, I've just improved my spacing between this cordon and this cordon with the hand width rule. Now, we prune all of our muscadines this way except for two varieties. There are two varieties, which are Granny Val and Supreme, that we prefer to go even further spacing between the cordons. So if this was Granny Val or Supreme, my rule would be 2 hand widths. So I'd want to be able to space 2 hand widths between the cordons. Now this spacing here is right where I want it to be. I can get both of the palms of my hands on the main arm, and I'm far enough away between these cordons here. Here, I'm not. This one is right here. So if this was Granny Val or the Supreme variety, I would even come in and take even more of the fruiting wood out. So even though that looks like a long way, this is how we prune Supreme and Granny Val. And the reason is, Supreme and Granny Val put on so much fruit and so much production that if we don't space these cordons or spurs 2 hand widths apart, they're going to overcrop. If they overcrop, 3 things are going to happen. The first thing that's going to happen is when the fruit begins to ripen, all the leaves or foliage up here are going to drop off. The leaves are working so hard to manufacture the sugar that ripens the fruit that there's so much of a fruit load on here, the leaves can't keep up and they're just going to drop off. And when that happens, you have a vine that's loaded down with fruit that's not ready to be harvested, that's not going to ripen because we've lost all the leaves. The second thing that'll happen is if we do somehow are able to ripen the fruit, if there are enough leaves to do that, the fruit quality will be very poor. The fruit will be a lot smaller, it won't be as sweet. And thirdly, or most importantly, if you get Granny Val Supreme tweaked out of balance from a good production standpoint, then the vine's particularly weak going into the winter months. And if the vine is weak going into the winter months, it can't withstand the colder temperatures that we have or big swings in temperature that we may have, and can lead to cold weather damage. So on older vines, on all the varieties except Supreme and Granny Val, we want the 1 hand width, but on Supreme and Granny Val, we want to make sure that we have the 2 hand widths between the cordons and spurs. We prefer for our customers to get 50 to 60 pounds a year for 25 years versus getting 100 pounds of fruit for 1 year only, and then the vine get damaged by cold weather injury. I hope this instructional pruning video gives you some good insight on how we prune and how the best way to manage Supreme and Granny Val.